Hello. How are you all doing? How's your week been? Has it been all right? Right, I did promise, and I shall. Enough of you commented. You wanted to see how we can put together a basic tension tool so we can tension those Squire 440s. So we got a basic tension tool. Remember, guys, whatever you do, keep it legal. That's always the message I'm going to tell you. Keep it legal. I don't endorse or promote people to do things illegally. So keep it legal. This is all for lock sport, for hobbyists and enthusiasts. Okay. So we've got our little tension tool. Right. That's part of this week's prize draw for my supporters. So thank you, supporters. This, and you get the two 440s to have a little play with, like I showed you in the other video, and a wire to pick them, and hopefully you can pick them and lock them up and learn loads and enjoy this tool. So I did say I was going to show you how to make it. So first and foremost, I'm gonna need me glasses because I can't bloody see it. Honestly, guys, I am blind as a bat. Right now, oh, what's all this on this bench? Right, so we had a few bits and pieces, didn't we? But the old junkyard offcuts, and we thought we're going to try and put something together. So what do we have? Well, we had a bit of a. I've got to find something better than that. We had a bit of a 10mm beaten up rod. So we've got that. That's 10mm, okay, 10mm diameter. It hasn't got to be that size. It could be 12mm, it could be 15mm, it could be 9mm. Depends what you've got. It's locked down. So whatever you got knocking about in the back of a junk box somewhere, it all depends what you've got. So I've got 10mm. We're going to use 10mm for this demonstration today. So 10mm body, okay? We've got that. And then we're going to use... Now this looks a little bit better, doesn't it? A 4mm stainless steel rod. Doesn't have to be stainless steel, but stainless steel is going to be a bit more hard wearing. But it depends if you've got some bright, mild steel, that'll do as well. It'll be easier for you to work with. So we've got a 4mm rod. So we've got 10mm, 4mm. So far, I'll let them all roll away. And then we've got, you can get away with anything from 2.3, 2.4, 2.5. Depends what you got. You could even use a bossed up drill bit if you had to. You know, they're going to be pretty hard to work with, but you could use it, and once it's in, it's going to give you a good tip. So there's a good suggestion. If you've got a broken up drill bit, you've snapped the end off, and you think, oh, that's a 2.4 or a 2.5, I could use that. And you can. Okay, that's not a problem. It's just going to be a bit harder to work with. Remember, drill bits are made of hard stuff. This is stainless as well. So it's a beaten up. I think this was about 2.3 something. Rod, it's an odd size, but we can use it. So we're going to use this, say, for instance, 2.3 bit of rod. So we've got 5mm, 4mm, 2.5, 2.3, 2.2, whatever you don't want 3mm if you can. If you get 3mm rod, you're going to have to square it off and do a bit more work. So you want less than 3mm, but you don't want no more. You don't want no bigger than 2.2, 2.3 because it'd be too thin. That's why I say that. And a couple of bolts. Now these could be any size that you want. Okay, I think these are 4mm, but you could use any size that you want. I'm going to use 4mm, and I'll show you why in a minute. Because where's the body? We need to be able to get underneath that little slot, but we don't want to be too far down. So if this was 5mm, the hole would be too great, and I'll be weakening it and it'd be so thin at the bottom. So let's have a look at this particular one. As you can see, we're close, but we've got enough meat that I'm not going through the bottom. So that's why I've chose that size. The larger this is, the more chance you're going to go through that cavity that you're going to cut through, and you're going to drop through the bottom. So you need to make this so it's going to fit the size of rod that you got. So if you've got a bigger rod, you could use a bigger bolt. Okay, depends what you got. So that's why I've gone for that size, because that's the stuff that I've got. So you've got your main ingredients for this little pie that we're going to make. And then there's lots of other things you're going to need to make it. Now, you don't need all these things I'm going to talk about, but there can be, it's what I've got, so I'm going to use, but you could have something completely different. First and foremost, you're going to need a vise, ain't you, to put all this in. Because you're not going to be able to work very much without a vise. And you're not going to get very far if you haven't got a drill either. Okay, so you need a vice and a drill. They're a must. So you could work with these pieces. Okay, so say if you've got those two things. What else are we going to need? Well, we're going to need a good drill set. Remember we talked about the engineering drill set. Let me reach across here. It's only a cheap one. It costs about 18 quid. They don't last forever, but I like it because it's got lots of sizes in them. And you can use these sizes again, especially for measuring piped dimensions, internal dimensions, by using the back of the drill bit. And you're thinking, oh, it's a 3-point feeler. Test it. That's a bit slack. Okay, let's go for a 3.4. Oh, that's a bit tighter. And the other go up to 4. Go, oh, that's perfect. So the internal diameter of something could be measured by using these different drill bits. That's why I like them. They're good for point sizes, and we're going to need point sizes today. And we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail. So engineering drill set, if you've got one, brilliant. If you haven't, but you fancy going at projects, try and get one. Loads of different prices out there. It's up to you and your budget. All the difference is there are increments of 1 mil. Okay, that's why you can see they're not 2, 3, 4, 5 mil. They're 1.1, 1.2, all the way up. You know, they're in between sizes. That's what you need, in between sizes. And the reason for that, say, right, we've flattened all this off and we've tightened it all up. So we've done that part, but we'll go through that in a bit. Say if I was going to put this in here, once I've done my little groove, and we can do that a few different ways. This is a 4 mil bar. Now if I drill a 4 mil hole in this particular steel rod and drop it in, what's going to happen, by the time I flatten that top off, I'm going to get slop. So I'm going to find it difficult to try and get it straight. So I want this as snug as I possibly can. So I'm going to start off and drill a 3.8 hole, which is smaller than the diameter of this. And I'm going to try and see if I can get it in there and probably get this deburred a bit of sandpaper. And then I'm going to try and get it to fit so snug that I might have to tap it in gently with a hammer. So it's such a tight, snug fit so it'll stay nice and straight. So 4 to 4 is going to give you angles all over the place, and you're not going to get a true fixing. Okay, so the point sizes help. But when you're doing the body part, I'm going to drill a 3 mil hole through there underneath once I've done the slot. But then I'm going to use a 4 mil tap, and that'll be fine. I'll go straight through. But when you're getting stuff where you need to fit as snug as that, it always helps to get down a couple of point sizes so you can get it nice and snug and straight. Okay, so that's why we're going to use those. I hope that helps. Right, what else we're going to need? Well, I'm going to use, like I talked about before, again, great idea gifted to me, collet block. I'm going to use this collet block, and then we're going to got a couple of collet inserts, and then we're going to use a 9 to 10, so that will take that rod, and we're going to be able to drop him in there and work with that. And the collet, so this is going to go in, drop this in there this way around so you can see. These just sort of push in here. They're a bit tricky to get in. There we go. She's pushed in, and then we're going to tighten that up, and then you put your rod in it. You can work with that rod now. So look, and it's going to be nice and straight. So we could drill holes and do all sorts of stuff by using this collet block, and this collet block will be set into a vise nice and straight as well. Okay, so that's going to come in handy. We're going to do that. So collet block, definitely going to use that. I'm going to use it for that point there, taking back out. And then also, when I'm going to be drilling the holes, in this piece here, when I need to put my tip in, I'm going to use this smaller one to keep it nice and straight, and then we're going to drill a hole through there. So they're going to come in nice and handy. But you haven't got to have these. They're like a nice have to, make things a little bit easier. If you haven't, it doesn't matter. You just got to be dead careful when you're setting up your vise to clamp your pieces in, to make sure they're absolutely as flush and as straight as you possibly can get them. Okay, those are going to help me, but you might have a super duper vise that can take all these sizes, no problem, and it's going to be nice and straight. Brilliant. But I'm going to use those collet blocks. That's going to help me. Right, we've got those. Of course, we're going to use the drill set. We're going to need that. I'm going to use carbide 4 flute end mills to drill my holes as well. So these are going to help me, especially on that round bar, trying to drill a round hole for round things. It's not easy. So I'm going to use these as well to try and get it started. That'll give me a nice straight flush finish. So we're going to use a 4mm, and that's going to be used to create my slot. And then I'm going to use a 3mm, and that's going to be created to use where I'm going to put those little bolts in so we can hang on to the bugger. And then we're going to have to drill another tiny little hole with that drill set, so where we can drop the tip. Okay, so we're 10 minutes in and we've not even got halfway through, so it's going to be a long video, guys. It's going to be a long video, so prepare yourself for that. So that's why we're going to use those sort of particular items. You haven't got to use these. You can use drill bits, but again, I'd suggest starting off really, really tiny, small with a centre punch. Use a small drill bit and then build up slowly, and then you can get through. I can go straight through with those, but if you're going to do it with just drill bits, you're going to have to take your time and build up the size of the hole. Just don't go straight in for the size that you need straight off, because you're going to get what we talked about, walk. It's going to walk. It's not going to be straight, because it just won't be able to. You'll struggle trying to drill through a round surface. That's why we need to flatten it off a touch. Or you can start with a tiny little centre punch, tiny little drill hole, and then build it up. That's the way of doing it. So, but I'm going to use those. So we've got that. What else we're going to use? Obviously, we're going to need a bit of piano wire. We're going to use a bit of MCC, Molly Slip, just to try and stop stuff. It's getting bloody everywhere already. You can see I use it a lot. Call that pieces down while we're working with. Tool life and finish, we're going to use that. I also like using, it's not for spraying the plants. What we've got in here, white water, or some people call it suds. Basically, it's an oil solution. You only put 5% of the oil into a container, and then you fill it up with the rest with water, and this cools it down. And I like to use this by spraying on the piece as it goes through. You can use stuff like WD-40 to cool your pieces down. I just don't like the smell of it. That's why I don't use it. But it depends what you like and what you've got. We're going to use a flux coated, pre-coated silver solder rod, and then we're going to use a bit of MAP. Okay, MAP gas. Remember, this stuff gets a lot higher than butane or propane. So we're going to get up to those degrees where we need to melt that silver. So you're going to use a bit of MAP, and it's got a little, you can see, used a fair bit. Rothenberg Superfire. Great little gun. Used it for ages. Never let me down. I'm going to use that, but you haven't got to. You can use different ways of attaching things. So instead of those nice, beautiful... it's my new curtain pick set. What size we got here? 5 gauge. I like to use silver solder on things, and the reason I do that, this is cut for Chubbs, Fortresses, Yale's, quite a few different, got adjustable collar there. The reason that I do use silver solder is if I dropped a pin in there, okay, so we dropped a pin, it could be thread, it could be not, either. What happens, anything with movement in over time, because you're putting a fair bit of pressure on that curtain, you don't realise it, but you can, going on and off, on and off, and on and off, on and off, on and off. Even the slightest bit of movement in that is going to cause you wear. It'll wear, and eventually that hole will become oval over time, and then the pins that you put in are just going to keep falling out. So if it's fixed in, it can't move, it can't wear. The only point it's going to wear on is the actual physical tip. Now I use stainless, so that's going to last a hell of a lot of time. That's why I fix things in. I don't like movement or wear, especially when something curtain locks, and you've got to be delicate and you've got to be light, as we all know. But it's that on and off, and sometimes fishing around to try and find your position you want to be in. You can also get that movement. So it's nice to have something fixed, I think. My personal opinion, get something nice and fixed in. You're not going to have a problem with it. It's not going to wear and cause that slop over time and make that hole oval. So that's my personal preference anyway. So, they're on sale now. If you want to look in the website, beautiful endorsement for me. Adjustable, beautiful curtain pick set. So, right, we've got those pieces, and what we're going to do is try and start to put everything together. We're going to try and understand as we go through the process, and I'll do my best to try and show you the best technique. You know, first and foremost, I want to clean this up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to clean it up. You can clean it up quite a few different ways. You know, if you are lucky enough and you own a lathe, obviously you could just face it. Okay, you go into a lathe, your facing pit will go in, it'll spin round, and you'll better face it backwards and forwards to make that nice and flush. And then you'll turn it over, and then you'll face the other side, and you can maybe even tidy up that a little bit by the use of a lathe. If you haven't got a lathe, you could drop it in the vise. You get a file, you'd file it off, and then again you go with your sandpaper, and you'd slowly flatten it out, keep testing it, having a look at it visually, make sure it's nice and flat. You can even get a little spirit level on it so you can get dead flat either side. That's a good surface to work with. So you've got that. Your base material needs to be pretty good nick. I mean, this one's a bit tatty, but we're going to do our best with it. So that's the first and foremost. Then we're going to do is we're going to need to put a slot in it. I've thought of different ways we could possibly do this, because you know, people have got different sets of tools. Now we're talking about slots. I can use my 4mm, use a 3 or 4mm, and I'll do a slot. I'll slot it out as I will using a pillar mill. Okay, remember when you're using anything to do with milling, you need a milling sort of design machine. A normal pillar drill won't do it, because pillar drills are designed to do downward force, not force between left and right. Okay, so they're only designed to do that. Once you start milling stuff, you just knacker it out. You'll knacker the actual bearings and whatnot in the drill. So you need a milling drill. It's got to be more fixed. So we can go backwards and forwards. But you haven't got one of those, and lots of people haven't. What we could do is you could get a file it out. Take you some time, but you could do it. You could get an angle grinder with a flat disc, a small thin flat disc, and disc it out so far, and then finish it off with a file to speed it up a little bit, but be very careful. Remember to wear all your protected, especially eye equipment when you're going to do stuff like that. If you had a slightly bigger bar, what you could do, now it's not always going to be optimal, but you could actually, once you've got your main hole and body in, and you can work out exactly where you are, you could drop another hole, say about there, straight vertically down, thread your wire through, a bit like those shipping the bottle tools, create your handle, then you've got a hole for your wire to run through straight down, because that'll give you all the room that you need, and then you could pick that way. But having that just a hole and having all this covered, what's that problem it's going to cause you is if you need to change angles and stuff, getting your tool in and out, you're going to restrict yourself a little bit by having it fixed in. So it's good if you could do some sort of slot in that piece, and that's why we're going to do that. Okay then, so enough with a waffle. Spent ages already. There's 18 minutes and 27 seconds of my life talking about bits of junk of metal. But we can go on further. This will go on. This video is. So we've got to clean it up, and I'll try and speed this up. I'll clean it up and I'll come back and I'll talk about it. And then we'll go through each stage as we're making this tool. So try and give you the best insight of what you're doing. So I shall see you in a mo. Okay. It looked a bit like dog shit before, but now it's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. It's not as beaten up as it was before. We've still got a few more. I don't want to take too much off. I'll see if I can try and slot through that little gap there, make the best of it. We can get the rust off later on. But we've cleaned it up a little bit more, and it's a little bit more useful now. I'm going to try and put a hole now. Okay, through the centre of that. So that bar is 4mm, as we know. So I'm going to go for the 3.8. So I'm going to get my engineering drill bit, get my 3.8, and I'm going to drill a hole in it. And I don't want to go too far. I only want enough for that bar to sort to be about possibly there, just past that point there. If it was right on the end, I'm going to get more chance of it being sort of out. I'm going to solder it in, so it's going to stay in wherever I put it. But the further in I go, the more secure it's going to be. But I don't want to go all the way down here, because obviously I'm going to need to drill holes for the handle, so I don't want to be that far down. So I'm going to be somewhere about that sort of depth, which is probably what, 15 mil. Depends on the piece you've got. If you've got a longer bar, you can do further, you know what I mean, or it's wider, you can have a bit more room. But I'm only going to go, I'd say a third. Let's stick to the third rule. There you go, a third depth of the piece I need in. And then we can always shorten this off later. We don't want this too long, but we want it long enough so we can run the wire down and get into the padlock and hold it in our hands. So we're going to measure that out in a little while, so it doesn't matter if it's slightly too long. So about a third of the piece that I'm using, or a third of the piece of steel or whatever you've got you're using. Okay, so just remember you need to have a space, because you can have a slot to get in there. If you went all the way through, you're going to be going straight into this bar as well, so you don't really want to do that, do you? So about a third. Right, I'll be back in a mo and we'll see what the hole looks like. Okay, we have a hole right in the middle. Well, I'm going to test it. I'm going to drop a bit of wire in, put my finger on there. Oh, but everything's still hot. And then we're going to have a look. See, about a third. Ain't going to be exact. I just want enough so I can grip on that bar and keep it nice and straight. So where did we put my bar? I say bar down here. Now we know this ain't going to fit in at that point, because this is 0.2 of a mil too big at this particular point. But once you start flattening it off, you're going to see that it's going to become a little bit more sloppier if I was using a 4 mil. So the next stage now for me is I need to put a nice little groove in this little bugger, and we need to move over somewhere to a different vise, and we're going to set it up and then we're going to groove it, and then I'll show you what that looks like. So I'll be back in a minute. I want to try and get rid of that little nick out of there. So I'm going to try and aim. I'll try and aim for that top part. So I'm going to put a groove in there. I'll be back in a mo. Right, we're all in the collet block. We're in position. Now things that I use is one of these. No, it's a level box. It's a box of levels. Okay, and this works really well. It's magnetic, so you can see it sticks to stuff, and we can see how level is at 0.1. That's not bad going. I'm going to try and get it 0.1 again there. How level that is in that vise against the piece that I'm going to be milling. So try and get my arm out of the way. Obviously I'm going to use that mill bit on that point there. I'm going to run along as far as I can, and then I'm going to have to take it out and turn it around and do the other end. But I'm going to need to make sure it's all level up, and you can use a level box to do that, and also use parallels as well. So you can try and get a parallel in that groove and measure exactly what it is. I mean, luckily I'll keep all my tooling in this actual mill press. So all I've got to do is turn it around and I'm measure back exactly from my last point, and then I'll carry on and mill through the other side. So it's going to be loud, so I won't mill it while I'm videoing it because it's going to be loud and you guys don't need to do that, but that's going to be a few suggestions. So see you in a mo. One thing I did forget to tell you about, but point of reference, make sure when you're measuring it out you get your mill, whatever you're going to use, right dead centre of that hole, because you're going to be milling or drilling or filing or cutting just at the top of that gap. So you want to make sure that you're even either side. Okay, so make sure the point that you're going to use is going to be dead exact either side. So when you do that slot, it's going to be exactly central, not wonky. So use whatever tooling you've got to make sure that is actually dead in the middle. Right, I shall fire it up and then we'll start putting a slot in this, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Right, we've got a slowly short slot starting to build. Now we've got to remember, when you're slotting something, you may not know this, but you don't just drop it in and slot it and it's done in one go. You have to do very tiny amounts, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. You won't be able to just slot it in one go. It'll probably take a good 15 to 20 minutes to do either side, just going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And I'll run it for a little bit. It's going to be loud, guys, so bear with me. So I can turn this up. Put the old lube on. Okay, so we're at the point where we're at. That's my last cut. I can only go that far. Now I'm going to adjust it down a point of a mil. You can see, not a great deal. Take it down a little bit more. Keep that cool. Try and keep the cutting bit as cold as you can. Going backwards and forwards. Again, a tiny bit more. Tiny bit more. Go down a bit more. More lubrication on there. We're just starting to get through that slot now. So one tiny bit more. Right, we're through that slot. Let's get all this out of the way. Make sure it's out of the way. Always be mindful of let me open this up a bit so you guys can see. Be mindful, these are dead sharp. Amount of times I've caught my back of my hand working underneath pieces because I can't be bothered to take it out. So if you've still got a little cover for them, make sure you pop them on, because you can cut yourself so badly on the end of these end mills. A bloody nightmare they are, an absolute nightmare. So we've got, let's try and find something to clean it up with. You can see why I use this kitchen towel, because I spray that stuff and it goes bloody everywhere. So clean this up. And I'll take it out of the collet. Okay. So what do we look like? What have we got so far? So focus. He's tidying up a little bit. We got halfway through. So now I've got to turn it round and do the other half. So we'll get there. And we'll have a slot all the way through. That's using the collet technique. You could drop it in a vise and you could go backwards and forwards, but you've got to get it dead level. Okay, to do that you need it to get dead level. I'll finish the slot off and then we'll look at the holes next. Okay, well, cleaned up a little bit now. So there we got a lovely little slot. Okay, try and get as much in the middle as you possibly can. So that tatty little bit of bar has now turned into something a bit useful. Now we've got a tricky bit now. We've got to put a hole underneath the slot. Somewhere around there. But we don't want to go through the bottom and we want it nice and straight. So I'll do my best to try and show you how we're going to do that. So it's going to be tricky, but we could do it. I know we can. So I'll set it up in the old V block and then I'll show you how we do it. Okay, so what we're trying to achieve here. Now we're trying to get this to 0 as much as we possibly can. I've used this parallel and I have to sort of pack it out to get as flush as I possibly can by using a set of feeler gauges, and I'll show you those afterwards. So we're going to try and get this. There's a slot that I actually milled through. I've dropped this plate into it. Now this is going to, because when you look at something, even from sort of side and angle, you think it's straight, but it does. The eyes do play tricks on you, so you want to try and measure it as accurate as you can. Now the way I try and do it is try and get just a couple of points below where you need it, because when you tighten it up, what happens as you start to put that pressure on that collet, it'll slowly move and rotate clockwise as the way you're going to tighten it. So that will actually change its position, and I'll show you that when I grab hold of the doodah to tighten it up. So I'll try and get my arm out of the way the best I can. So we're going to try and get hold of this. So now watch that gauge. What's it start to do? I can't see because I'm all the way over here. As you can see, it's moved miles out already. So then you're going to have to undo it and reset it. So you've got to keep playing backwards and forwards. So you can try and get that to a few decimals below where you need it, and then you can tighten it up to the point you're going to need to do it. Because we're going to have to put a hole through here for where that bar's going to go. So we're going to go mess about backwards and forwards until I get it right, and then we'll go for the next stage. Right, we've got the little bugger level. Now the next thing we've got to think about is where the slot is. We don't want to be cutting into that slot. We want to be between the material at the back and the material at the front. We want to be looking the channel in between those two. So this is nice and level now. We've paralleled it out. Lots of backwards and forwards, lots of little adjustments. We use the I just use the, try and get a focus, a set of feeler gauges just to pack out so I could get rid of all that slop. So just a set of feeler gauges, all sorts of different sizes, so we can use that on that plate. So you get your plate, use a parallel. If you've got a bit of slop, you haven't got the exact size, you put a feeler gauge in until it's solid, there's no movement in that slot, and then you know you've got it dead level by using your little box. Okay, so that was a bit of an inspiration thing there. Let me turn it off, I don't want to save the battery. Right, so the next thing is we've got to try and work out where we want the hole. Now we want to be sort of, like I said, not in the actual slot, and we don't want it to the back. So I'm using 3mm for this one. I think I've measured it all out the best I can. Trying to put me around the camera. Yeah, we're tight, but we'll do it. Right then, so the next part, I'll work out where I want it. So I don't want to be too close to the end because I'm going to weaken it. Don't want to be too far down the body. So I normally think about between 5 and 6mm. So you just measure that. Okay, so I want to be on the outside of that cutting piece. So that's about 3.5, 4mm. A little bit more. There you go. I'm about 5mm from the end because I'm putting a 3mm hole in anyway. It gives me about 4mm before the actual body of the tool is sticking out there. So I need about 4mm of meat to hold on, because remember I've got to put a thread or a bar or a slot or whatever you want to put through it, through that position. So I want it to be nice and sturdy, nice and strong. So we're at that position there now. Now the tricky thing is it's round. So if you're trying to mill or drill anything round, what happens is it'll skit off in all the directions because it's designed to drill flat things. So as soon as you put pressure on, because there's different angles, it's trying to cut and it's trying to feel for where it's cut, because it's not flush, it'll try and walk. So it's a bit of a trick to this. You've got to be gentle and you've got to take your time. Lots of lubricant and control your speed. Right, so it's going to get a little bit loud, so bear with me and we'll go through it together. So I've got movement. I know where I want it. I'm going to lock off the machine. Can't drift anywhere. The vice is exactly where it is. It's all set perfect. So now it's time to put a hole in that particular ram bar, and a tiny one at that. So it'll get loud now, guys. Put a bit of speed on. Put lubrication on to start with. Now you've got to be very, very gentle. Now keep an eye on that actual cutting piece. See it's trying to walk. It's trying to scoot off. I'm dabbing it in and out so I can get a flat. Here we go. Remember that. So we can get a flat point to drill all the way through now. If you just go straight in and hard, it'll just scoot off and that'll be cock off. So you want it nice and straight. So now we've got a flat piece, we can go through and take it easy. We're going to go through the whole body in one go. That's what we're going to do next. So load again. Lots of lube. Keep dabbing it in and out. True. Yeah. Take this out of the way. Get rid of that noise. Make sure I'm right out of the way. I don't want to catch my arm or my hand on that cutting piece. Like I say, if you've still got that those little inserts that you get sometimes when you buy these these milling bits. I don't know what I'll do with it. I'll chuck everything. Oh, I've got one here actually. That'll come in handy. So you're supposed to get these, what they're coming. So if you're going to work around these things, if you can get it to fit, I mean this one's a little bit loose for this one, but if you get them to fit, put something over there, because you're bound to put your hand there and you'll end up with a nasty gash in your hand. So be very careful, very careful. Right, so we're going to clean this up a little bit. And we just use something to poke through the hole. There we go, we're all the way through. Nice and straight. Yeah. Now, at times people think, right, I'm going to take it out of here and then I'm going to tap it or whatever you need to do to it. But my advice would be, leave it in there. Leave it in there, okay? Because it's as straight as it's going to be. And then try and tap the hole through there. Let's see if I've got the right size tap here. So we've got a tap. Basically, all I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a thread all the way through. So we need a little bit more lube in there. I'm about to cut it. Now it's difficult to try and get these, you'll feel it when it starts to go. Now what I like to do, I'll try and get my arm out of the way and I'll back off a little bit so you can see. What I like to do, I like to pinch each end and then I'll put even pressure on the actual tap like that, see? And I'm wiggling backwards and forwards. I need to make sure I get that hole nice and straight. And if you can feel it cutting quite easily, there's a good chance you get it straight. When you start to be off at an angle, it tends to be tighter. So basically what I'm doing is I'm cutting, releasing, cutting, releasing, cutting. Basically it's cutting in, releasing the swarf out, cutting in, releasing the swarf out. Now, don't rush this, don't force it, because if you break one of these off in here, there's a fair chance you're never going to get the bugger out, because they are as hard as bloody nails to try and drill through. They're a pig, and they always seem to break off just below the surface. So try not to break them off. Now you do get a few telltale signs when they're going to go. They'll start to make like a pinging noise. They'll go ping, ping, ping. As soon as you hear anything like that, get that tool out of there and change it. You've got to remember, these taps do not last a lifetime. They do wear quite quickly, especially if you start to use some hardened materials like stainless or things like that. I mean, this is mild steel, so you can see we're going through it pretty easy. Now, some people like to tap one side and then turn it over and tap the other. Well, because I'm in this position and I feel how the tool goes through, I'm going to go all the way through if I can. Sometimes that can cause it to be off a little bit, but we'll give it a go. And it will save me some time later on, because we've still got loads to go. Loads to go. If you've lasted this far in the video, well, thank you. And hopefully you're going to learn something. There we go. It goes nice and easy now. It starts to come out the bottom. So we'll put a thread in there now. So that's one less thing we've got to worry about. And I'm mindful I don't catch my hand on there. So we've got a nice thread in there. I can put a 4mm, whatever, in that hole. If you've got 5mm, you can put 5mm. If you've got 6mm, you can put 6mm. If you've got 2mm, you can put 2. It doesn't matter. Whatever you've got. You wanted a thread, you got a thread. You wanted an hole, you got an hole. So let's get him out. Watch me hand on the old doodah. Here we go. It don't take a lot to undo them. There she is. And there she is. I'll just try and clean it up a little bit, and I'll try and show you. I can't really see what the camera's doing because it's on a tripod, but there you go. We've got a thread all the way through. Like I say, sometimes people like to do one half and then the other half. But it's difficult to try and get it level like that. But I've gone all the way through. It's a quicker way. Let's hopefully it's not going to be too wonky. Next part now is we've got to flatten off that other bar. Got to put a hole in that little bar, put a little rod in that little bar, and then we're going to attach that little bar to this. And we're getting close to finishing, but we've still got a long way to go. And I know the video's going on, but there's lots of bits I've missed out as well. So I hope you're learning some stuff along the way. I'll give you some inspiration for some products, or even just a knowledge of how these sort of tools are created. So again, we're going to get that bar next, and we're going to flatten it off, and then I'll show you step-by-step stages of how to do that. So I'll see you on another side of the shop. Right, we've got it in the vise. I must have spent about 10 minutes trying to get it as level as you possibly can. So we want to try and get that as level as we possibly can. You're about 0.3, 0.2. So you've got to keep fiddling about with it. There you go, about 0.1. So that's as level as I possibly can. So once I start filing that, I want you to be trying to level as much as it is in that vise. You can use the old spirit level as well. You've got to try and faff about because it's a tiny piece to try and measure. Try and get it just on there. And it's only plastic. You can see it's just slightly out. So a bit more piffing about. I'll get the bugger square. And then what we're going to do is start to flatten off. Now, this is 4mm. So what you're going to need to do is probably take at least half of that off, because you won't be able to get your wire in because the 440s are quite tight. So you need to be taking this down to at least, I would have said a third is going to be too tight really. Just over a half really. So if you're aiming for 2mm on this material, you'll get your wire in. Anything much more than that you might struggle, and that's using a 1.2mm wire. So I'll have a little piff about, try and get him a bit more straight, and then we're getting there. Look, flatten it off. Now to flatten it off, the usual file, you could grind it. There's loads of different ways, but got to keep measuring it, and then we're going to smooth it off, and then we're going to have to add that hole. Now some people like to sort of leave a little bit on there so it's still round, sticking at the back of the padlock, and then cut from a point backwards. You can do that, that's not a problem. The only problem you've got is to do that, it's going to take you a lot longer, because you're going to have to keep mindful of where that point is and how much depth of you've got here. But we'll give it a go and we'll see how it comes out, and we'll see how much longer it does take. Or you can just flatten it all off in one go, because it doesn't really matter if it's flat through the other side, because it's just the bottom part of this actual bar that's going to be sitting in the little hole in the back of the lock to make it nice and steady for when you pick. So we'll have a little go at that, and I'll show you what it looks like. So we'll be back in a mo. So after about 10 or 15 minutes with the old foil, a bit of tape there holding it together as I usually do, and then we have a bit of a sanding block, just try and get some of them rough edges off. I still need to finish it off a little bit more. When it was something like this, now we still need to put a little hole in there, we still need to put a pin in there, but at this point now it's pretty good to get hold of the lock that you want to have a little pick at. So we're going to shift that little window out of the way, we're going to drop him through, which was sitting at the back. We left that little piece on there. Now we want to see how much room have we got. Now can we, let me get my wire around the camera, can we lift the little cover up? Come on, little boy, can we get a wire in? We can, quite easily. So that's as deep as I need to go. That's why you need to keep testing it, and test at this point before you attach it to the body of the tension tool. We still got to need to put a hole in it, we still need to put a tip on it, but we've got this point so far. Okay, so we're pretty good. I'll clean it up as much as I can while it's at this point, because it's easier to sand up when it's not attached to anything. You can get all the edges and all the bits and pieces, and then we're going to drop a hole in it, and I'll show you how to do that, and then we're going to weld it to the body of that tension tool. So we're getting there, guys, we're getting there. I know this video is extremely long, but I hope you're learning something, bits and pieces along the way. And then you can add that knowledge to different things that you're going to make in the future. Or if not, it's a really good understanding of how things are made and why they are made in that particular way. So I'll clean it up a little bit more, and then we'll get it in the vise ready for popping a little hole in there. Next stage. Right, I've messed about and got it level. A couple of tricks you can do that. Where's my little magic box, and I'll show you. Is if you get let's just focus. It's magnetic. Put a flat piece of metal on it, and then try and get my arm around. Let's move this out of the way for a little minute. And you just try and find a flat point on it with your finger, balance it on, and you'll feel it's trying to get flat, and then you'll take a measurement and try and get it as flat as you possibly can, and then you know it's level as much as you possibly can get it. Right, so we'll mess about with that again in a minute, but other things you got to think about. Right, I'm in this position. I know what I'll do. I'll put my hole in, I'll make sure it's nice and central, and I'll drop my hole through there. Well, that's what you don't want to do, okay? Because as soon as you put any pressure on there, because it's so thin now, you're going to bend it, and your hole's going to go down at an angle. So what you need to do is support this piece before you even attempt to drill a hole. Okay, there's lots of different ways you can do it. I mean, you can buy these, they're like little stands that you place under pieces, like a little jack, and you can wind them on and off, make them taller or shorter. I've got such a short distance gap here, that's not going to work. Let's back off a little bit. You can see this gap here between there and there. This little device is not going to work for me. It's even too big for that. So I've always got lots of bits and bobs hanging about. So I use, just get some steel bar, make sure what you've got, your surface is nice and clear, as clean as you can. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a little tower out of these steel plates. So we're going to build it up the best we can, and we're going to support that piece. And we should get all the swarf off, crap everywhere as usual. I'm going to build it up so I can try and get in there as flush as I possibly can. I've got a bit of a, you might say I've got lots of bits of plate lying about full of holes. That's the reason is I'm trying to, right, can we get that bugger in there? Now that one's a little bit too thick, so we'll try another little bit of plate. Now that's getting close. Now we need another little bit of plate. Let's have a look about. Let's, here we go. We've got some support now. So when I start to put pressure down onto that piece, it's only going to, that's quite tight in there now. It's not going to bend it down to cause an angle. So support the piece that you're going to drill. So I think we're more or less, it's difficult for me to do around this angle size, but I think we're more or less where we need to be. We'll just test it. It's more or less central to me. There you go. Now I'll put a hole in there. Pull them out. Be able to take my little tower out of the way. And he's nice in the centre, and he's exactly where we wanted him, and we've not bent it or put it in an angle just by supporting him. Right, we're going to take it out of here. We're going to move over to the side of the lab, and then we're going to put a pin in it. That's the next stage. Right, we've got a hole. I've wedged a pin in there, and I've ground it off flush at the bottom so it's nice and smooth. Now what I want to do is attach that pin so I don't, no slop, no movement, and it's never ever going to come out. So we're going to solder that pin in that position. I'll put it in the old collet block, and then we'll give it a quick old blast and get a bit of solder on it. So give me a mo. Right, it's going to get loud. Now what I want to try and do is not set fire to my microphone or the phone and all that drawer underneath there. I try to put a heat on this bar, and I want to get that flux to run down the bar, a drop in that point there. I don't want nothing really this side of it. I want it all behind and around there to fill in that gap. But I don't want too much, so it's going to be very quick. So we'll get the old flame going. See, start to build. And there she goes, she's done. It's as quick as that. Right, we've got to let it cool down now. And then we've got to cut it to size. So you didn't need a lot on there at all. A fraction, really, but that'll do the job. So once she's cooled down, we can size her out. So what we need to do is make sure we can replicate what the key does. So we're going to need to get the right height in the keyway. Again, we're going to have to thin off one of the sides because as you saw in the other video, the key part of the bitting that actually binds with the back levers is quite fine. So we're going to need to square that off a little bit. So that's the bit we're going to do next. We'll size it and we'll square it, clean it up, and then we'll do the next attachment part to the body. And we're getting close, we're getting close. And if you've lasted this long for the video, congratulations. It's been a few hours for me. It probably seems longer for you guys, but it has taken me a long time to get to this point. But I wanted to show you. You asked me to show you how this is all created and how much time and knowledge and effort goes into making anything to do with picking lever locks. A lot of time. So okay, I'll cut to size, clean it all up, and I'll see you again in a minute. Okay, we have cleaned it up. As you can see, all that solder there, it's going to hold in nice and tight. So it's all cleaned up. I've thinned it out a little bit, as you can see just there. Might need a little bit more, but we'll have a test of a little pick. Maybe take a little bit off the back, just square it up a bit. So I don't want to be much thicker than that bitting of the key, which I talked about before. So we need to test it, make sure we're going to get in the keyway. We can get in the keyway. Make sure it comes out the back, and make sure we can spin it all the way around into that position where we need to tension it. Now it might need a little bit more little tiny touches. Just got to make sure I don't catch that back lever as we pick it. So a few minor adjustments, but we're getting quite close now, so we can get in there quite comfortable, and it's exactly the right size. Hardest part now is back to the part what we made before. So I need to get this to fit in here now. It's nice and tight now at the minute, so I'm going to have to get it nice and level, strain it all up, and then I might have to just slowly try and get as straight as I can. Try and get as level with that slot as you can. So it's a lot of faffing about. Try and get them as level as you can with that slot. And then I'm going to have to sort of finely sand the sides down. I want it as tight as I possibly can, and then tap it through. But I don't want to start tapping through at this position yet because it's a little bit tight. And all I could do is end up bending it because there's not a lot of material there. But I need this to fit in there as snug as I possibly can. So that's the next stage, what I'll do. So it's going to be little bits of sanding either side, and then little test, sand, test, sand, test, sand, until I look comfortable. I can wiggle it all the way down there quite close, and I could tap it down the rest of the way. So give me a mo, and I'll have a little think about, and I'll try and get that all the way down there nice and straight, and then we're going to solder it in. And we're getting close, right, we've got her in. I've tapped her nice and in, sanded it down like I said I was going to do. She's not going to come out. There's no slop or wobble. She's nice and tight and as straight as I possibly can get that piece in there. Okay, try and get as nice as level as I possibly can with that groove. And we need to attach this part to there. Now we can use the collet, but I'm going to put a fair bit of heat on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it in the vise that way in, and then I'm going to start just to weld the top so the solder will flow down. If I was at this position here, It wouldn't, and I don't really want to get too much heat and wreck me collet and me actual collet block. So I'm going to get all that out of the way. We'll drop it in, set it up in the vise, and then we'll get a bit of heat on it, and then we'll try and get some solder to fix that bugger in. And then we're almost there, almost there. Right, we're in position. I've got me safety glasses on, my skiing glasses, so I don't set fire to my hand. I've got me special protective gloves on. Look at the state of my hands. Make sure you got your PPE ready for this sort of bit. Make sure you got a bucket of water, a fire extinguisher, a fire blanket. Who knows? Get it all ready, because you never know. Safety first is always the way. So what we're going to do is try and heat around the top of this piece, but we don't want to try and put too much heat on that bar. We're going to weaken it. So the trick is try and get all of this body part nice and warm, and then we're going to drop a bit of flux on it off this solder bar, this silver solder, and then we're going to try and run a little piece down there if we can, just a tiny amount, and try and get some down the back and the sides, and that'll hold it all together. That's the plan. Okay, fingers crossed. It's going to be noisy because of the old map, but we'll give it a go. I've got to try and generally heat it up. You'll see it change colour. It takes time. So it's starting to go dark. Around this side. Try and get plenty of heat on it. Now remember, this is going to be extremely hot. Try not to get that bar. We're not quite there yet. You can see the flux going in there. See the solder starting to go down. I want to run it a little bit more. I want to run that solder down there a little bit. There she goes. Now it'll stay sort of shiny, then all of a sudden it'll go really dull. And that's how you silver solder something. You've got to be quick and be mindful, and do not go anywhere near that piece until it's cooled down. It's going to be at least 10 to 15 minutes. You will not be able to touch that at all or move it. So, next stage, give it a clean up. Find something to put in there. Find some bolts to go into make as handles, and then we'll give it a test. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video so far, and we're nearly there. Thanks for staying around. I hope you learned something. And once it's cooled down, I shall clean it up, and then we'll give it a test. Right, we're there. So we had these pieces, or similar pieces to these. This pile of junk. And what do we do with it? Well, with a lot of hard work and a lot of graft, I can tell you what we did to it. You want to see, don't you? After all this time, you want to see what it looked like. There it is. Now you can see why my hands look like this. And there she is. To return that into something pretty beautiful, I think. It's very small, but you can, if you put the effort in, you can get your rewards out. And that's what life's all about. So junk to that. Right, so I hope you did enjoy that video. I hope you found it useful, and if not useful, entertaining. So what we're going to do, we will test it out in a minute. We will test it out, but I want to be mindful, guys, that for me to make this today, that's taken me all day. I know this doesn't seem all day to you. It might sometimes some others, but it's taken me all day. So I haven't earned any money today. Nothing at all, not a penny. It's cost me a day's wages to show you how to make that. So I thought I'd share that with you. So when you think about these little tools, especially the homemade ones, different people make picks and all different sorts of stuff, and you want them for a ridiculously cheap price. You've got to think of how much work that goes into them. Some people might say, well, you need to get your finger out and make it a bit quicker, but you can make mistakes, and if you make mistakes, they don't work as well. So just be mindful of that. A whole day's money that costs me. And if you are interested in picking padlocks, even for the first time, remember, guys, I do a set. It's beautiful, adaptable set built by GJ for me. It's got your pinned ones. It's got your piped ones. You just drop them in. I am getting some more tips, so the people who have already bought these, be patient. I'm working on some more tips with GJ, so we can get some more different tips for them. So be mindful of that. So I've got these on my website, and they're for £95. I know it sounds a lot of money, but this is all CNC machined. You get your wires, you get the case, 3 different gauge wires. You get both the piped and the pin tip. So you get all of that, and it'll save you a whole day. But it's up to you guys. And what we're going to do then is we're going to test it out, and then we're going to do a prize draw, okay, for the supporters this week. Obviously they're going to get both of these 440s and that padlock pick that I showed you earlier in the week. But what I'm going to do at the very, very, very end of this video, and the people that's made it all the way, I'm going to put this up for a prize as well, and I'll put a wire with it. You won't get no lock, and it'll go out to everybody, members and not. So what you need to do, if you're interested and you would like to own this very one-off tension tool that I have created today, and you would like to own it for FOC free of charge, all I need you to do is to leave a comment. Now, I don't need you to leave a comment with just saying comment, and any silly comments I won't count. So leave a comment. Did you find it useful, this video? Leave a comment. You learned something from this video. Leave a comment. Oh, you didn't understand how that worked. Or leave a comment. I'd have done it a bit like that. But just a silly comment, or I want that tool, mate. You ain't going to get put in the prize. And then I'll do that little draw next week for everybody. So it's not just supporters, it's supporters and non. So all supporters as well. You put your comments in and you might win it. But for the guys not a member of my website, my supporters, you can have a chance as much as everybody else now. So everybody can have a chance at winning this, supporters or non-supporters. Okay, guys, so it's up for grabs. We'll give it a test. We'll do this week's prize draw, and then hopefully we're all going to have a fantastic weekend. So I shall, hopefully, fingers crossed in my old age, this bugger works after all that. And I'll see you over there. Right. We're all locked up. Oh, these are tiny, these handles. He's locked up. Sure, that's nice and tight. Oh, yeah, you're not going to get through that bugger. Right, let's get a... I can use a bit of a thicker wire. I made a bit more room on this one. So we'll drop him in there. Can we get him all the way around? Can she... Oh, she's all the way around. Make sure she's all the way in. Oh, I've got a tiny amount to hang on to. It's tiny. Right, okay, let's try. There's 4 levers. So I've got clockwise tension. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now back to 1, 2, 3. And of course it works. After all that, we've got through it, no problem at all. Right, now, super long video, and we've got best to do the old dreams for the guys, that's the supporters. So you're going to win that other tool, and these 2 440s. I shall lock it back up for you. So we'll have a little bit of a dips. And supporters, again, thank you very, 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 very much. I've got one person here. I'll put this down. Don't break the pot on the pile of locks. So supporters, again, thank you. Without you guys, I cannot make these videos at all. So I do appreciate that. And if you want to become a supporter, there's a little link in below. You email me, I'll send you the password and the link to the website, and you can have a look around at all the stuff that I've got. So Stephen Lau, Stephen, my friend, congrats, you've won that lovely little pick. So Steve, get in touch and I shall send that beautiful little pick that I made and a couple of these 440s all the way over to the States. So God bless you, Steve. So guys, remember what I said about the comment on this tool. Leave a comment. This is open to members and non-members. So a comment, not just comment, but an half decent comment. That's all I ask. And I shall put all your names in a draw next week. I will do a little prize draw and give this away to someone with a pick wire. Just for my way of saying thank you. Now, if you've watched all the video, I really appreciate it. And if you like what I do, remember, subscribe. Stick the old big fat thumbs up, even though it's a little bit mucky. And leave a comment. Be polite. And above all, guys, have a fantastic weekend. It's great sharing the day with you. And I'll see you all very, very soon. Ta-ra.